It had been a lifelong dream of mine to work at SETI, to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. I know it's not a typical lifelong dream, lacking fame, money, and all the other stuff typically associated with lifelong dreams. But for me, it wasn't just some passing interest. From the time I was 8 years old to the day I got my degree in astronomy, this was my goal. This was my endgame. I so wanted to be part of humanity's effort to find extraterrestrial life. I wanted to be there should that historic moment arrive. I spent years looking up at the stars, wondering who or what was out there. I even fantasized about being the first one to discover it. Whether it took the form of a signal, a probe, or some alien friend request, I wanted to be at the forefront when it happened. That passion drove me for years, inspiring me to work hard to earn my position at SETI. It's also why I always looked at the stars with such awe and wonder. Well, I'm sorry to say, that sentiment has changed considerably, but not for the reasons you might think. You see, in the tireless search for alien life, I knew there were many possibilities, some more distressing than others. Most everyone has heard of the Fermi paradox, the idea that the universe is so vast and full of planets and stars, yet there doesn't seem to be any other intelligent life besides us. Those who work at SETI are aware of it too, but we've always approached it with more academic rigor, theorizing, calculating, and trying to discern what's merely possible from what's actually probable. I certainly took part in that rigor. Hell, I worked it into my master's thesis in college. But of all the possible solutions to the Fermi paradox, of all the potential factors, constraints, limitations, and barriers, nothing could have prepared me for the truth. Because that moment I mentioned earlier, the one I thought would be so historic and groundbreaking, it kinda happened. We actually did make contact with alien life. That life was intelligent, on par with us, and likely much greater. We spoke to them, they spoke to us, and we understood one another, as easily as you'd understand a phone call or a text message. But what they had to say, and why we never heard from them, or any intelligent aliens for that matter, that was more horrifying than anything Enrico Fermi could have predicted. You might think me crazy. You might think of this as little more than the musings of some paranoid, eccentric academic, shouting into the bowels of the internet. But I promise you it's true. And I need to get the truth out. Because the implications go far beyond alien life, if you can believe that. I'll try my best to put into words what happened. But please bear with me. I'm still trying to process it all. And honestly, I'm not sure I ever will. It all started with something from that master's thesis I mentioned earlier. That thesis is actually how I got my job at SETI in the first place. I won't get too deep into the academic jargon. You really don't need to know the complex math and science behind it. You just need to know that it was a hypothesis on deep space communication and how it could be incorporated into the search for alien life. Now, initially, it really didn't garner much interest. Even my professors thought it was merely speculative. But they never shot my thesis down outright, mostly because they couldn't figure out a way to disprove it. They also questioned whether it could be properly tested, and I freely acknowledge that. I probably could have left it there and still gotten my degree. But I just had to follow my ego. I just had to put it into practice. And I admit, my passion got the best of me. After getting a low-level job at SETI, I spent years doing research on my own time, working on a way to test my theories on deep space communication. I was convinced that SETI had been using the wrong tools in the search for extraterrestrial life, assuming radio waves were the best method for communicating across the stars. But I often liken that to using smoke signals to send a text message. I believe that any advanced alien civilization, even those just slightly more advanced than us, would use something different. Something that could traverse the vast distances of space without losing strength or coherence. I promise you, it's not as sci-fi as it sounds. It's just a matter of tapping into signals beyond radio, beyond X-rays, and even beyond gamma. It's not impossible. It's merely an engineering challenge. One I spent years working on, much to the chagrin of friends, family, and coworkers. I can't tell you how many major life events I missed for the sake of my research. But I just kept telling myself it would all be worth it. Because if I was right, then we would finally have the means of contacting alien life. And that was worth sacrificing for. Or so I thought. I went through many prototypes over the years, going into debt and getting into plenty of trouble with my superiors, especially when I used SETI equipment off the clock. But eventually, I had a prototype that seemed functional on paper. I just wouldn't know for sure until I plugged it into one of SETI's main dishes, something I wasn't allowed to do, mind you, and something that would have definitely got me fired if I hadn't covered my tracks. And honestly, I kind of wish they'd caught me. Hell, I wouldn't even mind being sent to prison or put in a mental hospital at this point. Because when I activated my prototype, when I began using it to scan every possible frequency the system could handle, it didn't take long to detect a signal. It didn't even take more than 3 hours. That shouldn't have been possible, especially if the signal was coming from a distant star system. Not unless, well, the source was coming from inside our solar system. But that distressing thought didn't cross my mind. I genuinely believed the system had malfunctioned. I kept checking, rechecking, and rebooting the system, thinking I had programmed the interface wrong. Now keep in mind, it's 2 a.m. at this point, and I am not supposed to be there. I'm also definitely not supposed to be tampering with advanced equipment like this. Then, after what I think was the 5th reboot, I heard it. The signal that began as this powerful focused tone became an audible message. And the message that came through was disturbingly clear.
Hello? What is this?
Not gonna lie, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Did I just hear what I thought I heard? Were those the first words ever spoken from one alien being to a human? And was I the first one to hear them? I had to collect myself. I blinked and shook my head a couple of times, thinking this had to be a dream, no different than the many dreams I had as a kid. But it was real. This was happening. I sent out a signal searching for aliens and got a response. Now, to be clear, it wasn't a response like you'd get on a smartphone or even a traditional radio. The message came in the form of computer code. A very simple, very easy to decipher code. It was so simple, in fact, that the signal processor treated it like an SMS message, converting it into words that showed up as a simple text file and read out loud through an auto reader. Also, it was in English. Basic, unobscured English. That shouldn't have been possible. How could it be alien and be able to communicate so clearly? At that point, I started to suspect that it was some sort of prank from one of the interns. Then, another message came through.
I am reading your signal. It is my understanding that humans do not use this frequency. Has something changed?
I checked the connection one more time. Everything was still coming in loud and clear, and my prototype was operating exactly as I'd hoped. If this was a prank, it was pretty damn convincing. But my gut told me this was real. All my life, I'd been rehearsing this scenario, wondering what I'd do if I ever got the chance to talk to a real alien. I'd scripted it in my head so many times, running through every possible outcome. But that script was officially out the window. I don't know what possessed me to sit down and start typing. but I was operating on adrenaline, excitement, and curiosity. So I responded. Hello. Greetings from the human race. It was simple, basic, and impersonal. Everything we'd been trained to use in the event the impossible became real. Not gonna lie, a part of me dreaded the response. For all I knew, I just sent back a message that an alien race might consider hostile or rude, thus dooming our first and possible only chance to make contact. I don't remember how long it took to get a response. I'd lost all sense of time at that point. But a response did come. And it was different, to say the least.
Human from the human race. No. Please, no. Please. Forgive me. I did not mean to respond. Have mercy. Have mercy on me and my kind.
I was taken aback. Now I really did think something had gone wrong. Or perhaps something got lost in translation. Even if this was an advanced alien and they understood English, why would they respond like this? Why did they seem so afraid? I was worried they would disconnect, so I tried conversing with them as best I could. We mean no harm to you or your kind. This is a message of peace. We only seek to make contact.
I understand the words you are using. I understand all words that all humans use, but I cannot risk it. My kind and many other kinds cannot endure more suffering.
Why? What suffering are you referring to? What is it that you're risking?
Please, I am breaking our highest protocols by conversing with a human. Just to merely look upon them is a grave transgression. I am only a monitor. I am no emissary.
I'm no emissary either. I too am a monitor of sorts. I only seek connection with another species like ours. But please, help me understand. A silence fell over the room. My heart raced and my hands trembled as I waited for the next message. My curiosity was beyond piqued, but a twinge of dread began growing inside me.
I can only tell you what I am authorized to know. That knowledge is limited, but is common to all sentient life in this galaxy. We're all told at infancy the same warning of our ancestors. Avoid Earth. Harm no human.
My mouth hung agape. Suddenly, the solution to the Fermi paradox fell into place. Intelligent alien life was real, and if the words of this alien were accurate, it was prevalent, including multiple races of being spanning many stars throughout the galaxy. But the reason we never heard from them, the reason our part of the universe seemed so silent, was because they were afraid. They were afraid of us. Where did this warning come from?
From a being, one whose true name is not known, but whose wrath is known to all. Many cycles ago, a race similar to my own visited Earth. They encountered humans, but thought little of them, seeing them as little more than primitives. They were simply there to test a new weapon, one meant to aid in planetary defense. But something went wrong. The weapon misfired and countless humans died. Your planet was nearly lost in the process.
It sounded impossible, but at the same time, it made sense of certain things. Human history has a lot of gaps. Recorded history only goes back 6,000 years at best, but our species, as far as we know, is well over 150,000 years old. That's a huge gap, one large enough for plenty of major events to occur, which ended up never getting recorded. For all we knew, there were entire civilizations that rose, fell, rebuilt, and collapsed again. And there was evidence of major genetic bottlenecks in the past. Most attributed that to a supervolcano eruption. But what if it was something more than that? What if this alien weapons test was the actual source? So many narratives played out in my head, but the alien continued.
The ancient race was prepared to leave. But then, a being awoke. We do not know if it was a human, a group of humans, or something else. We only know that this thing unleashed a horrible vengeance upon all life in the galaxy. It started by attacking the visiting race, stealing their weapons and using them in some perverse manner, creating this horrible force that spread throughout the cosmos.
Even through the plain text, I could sense the horror and dread. In my mind, I tried to imagine what had truly manifested. Could humans, ordinary, unremarkable humans, truly inflict such a galaxy-wide wrath? Or could there be something else behind this? Something other than human? I was tempted to ask for more, but something told me it would only upset this being even more.
It didn't stop at merely punishing those responsible for the destruction. Every race and every system was held responsible. As such, they were subjected to unspeakable, horrific torment. Countless beings begged for their lives. The pained screams of entire species filled the cosmos. Only a select few were spared, but only to spread one message that would transcend the ages. Avoid Earth. Harm no human.
Another silence came over the monitor. At this point, I was too afraid to respond. I worried that anything I said might traumatize this alien being more than they already were. I was already sick to my stomach. All these incredible revelations, each so disturbing, both in terms of truth and in implication. All I could do was just stare back at the screen in a daze. I had actually realized a lifelong dream, achieved what generations of curious humans had sought to accomplish. But now, I really wish I hadn't, because I can never look up at the stars again, not without imagining what kind of horror could have scared an entire galaxy's worth of advanced aliens. We'll probably never know now. All I have left to share is this final message from the alien.
Please, I beg of you, do not harm me or my kind. We were only monitoring Earth to make sure none contacted humans by accident. We will vacate our stations immediately. We will flee to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. Just don't awaken it again. Do not subject us to any more of humanity's wrath. Have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy.